is Catherine Ward-Thompson. I'm a Professor of Landscape Architecture at the University of Edinburgh, and I direct Open Space Research Centre. Well, Open Space Research Centre was started in 2001, and our focus is on inclusive access to outdoor environments. So we're interested in access to green spaces and outdoor places for everyone, different age groups, different cultural or ethnic groups in society, people with different abilities or disabilities. And some of our work is focused on children, some on older people. We're interested in a whole range of different issues, and recently quite a lot of our focus has been on health and access outdoors. When we started, we were funded by the Scottish Government initially for 3 years because they saw there was a research gap. So we wanted initially to develop a bit of knowledge about information that had already been made available, research that had already been done, often international research on the importance of access outdoors, what the barriers might be, what the things we could do to enhance access outdoors were. So initially we wanted to establish an information base and make that available through our website, which we did through some literature reviews. And then we were keen to develop some new research projects that started to do things a little differently from what had been done before. We used projective techniques, engaging with people and trying to understand how they saw the world, how they perceived the environment, the things they enjoyed there, the opportunities the environment offered them. And some of our early work was with children. We've also used those techniques with a whole range of different groups. When we started in 2001, we were really keen, even back then, on the link between access to the environment and health, physical health, mental health. And we couldn't get any funding to do that. Now, in 2014, we have for a number of years had funding to undertake that kind of research because governments, both nationally and internationally, have recognised that this is a really important issue and we need to understand better the environmental influences on our health and well-being. We're interested in environment because certainly myself and some of my colleagues come from a design background. So I'm a landscape architect. I was trained in design of the physical environment. Some of my colleagues in open space are psychologists or health geographers or people interested in other disciplines. We know that the environment, the physical environment, isn't everything. Our social environment is very important to us and our own emotional states. But what we believe is that the environment can offer us opportunities for physical health, for mental health, for well-being, or it can make that difficult for us to achieve depending on our mood, our personality, our life expectations, the cultural context in which we live. So there's a diverse range of influences on us, and we look to the environment to offer us possibilities. And if we have the right kind of environments, positive, good environments, then they offer us possibilities for being active, for being physically active to help maintain our physical health. But they also offer us opportunities perhaps for relaxation, for mental restoration if we're feeling stressed or after a hard day's work, we just want to chill out somewhere. They offer places for children to explore different kinds of environments, to learn about the natural world by engaging with it in a direct way. So all of those things are about how the physical environment offers us opportunities for our own health and well-being, or frustrates that. I believe it's vitally important. We have been through a stage in much of Europe, including the UK, in the 19th century, when, because of industrialisation, we recognised that people living in very cramped housing conditions needed access to public parks and green space for a rest on the one day perhaps when they might not be working, and the green space would offer not only a place to walk and physical relief but clean air and crucially mental relief as well. So in the 19th century we sort of knew that. And then partly what's happened is an interest in urban densification in the late 20th century has encouraged people to build high and to build densely. And also our health concerns have been in the 20th century largely dealt with by a very sophisticated medical development, which includes the use of pharmaceuticals, the use of very sophisticated technology, and somehow we've lost sight of the fact that actually that environment, that day-to-day physical environment, is also one that can either support our health or make it worse. And with mental ill health being a really problematic area for European health at the moment, something like 27% of people are supposed to suffer from some kind of mental health problem in their lives, a serious one, serious enough to go to your doctor about. So green space is something that we've always liked and we've always wanted to create parks and public places for physical activity, and we often have green spaces near rivers and they work as sort of ecological corridors, and there's been a lot of talk in recent decades about green space being important ecologically as part of ecosystems that should serve the city and serve the town. Now we recognise that actually we need access to green space for our mental health as well as our physical health, and if that green infrastructure isn't available to everyone close by to where they live, they find it difficult to access or may not use it often, and people are beginning to get concerned about the consequences of that. So green space is an integral part of what we need to make a healthy city. Ideally, I would say that everyone should have some kind of attractive, usable green space within 5 to 10 minutes walk of where they live. And it's important that it's walkable because parents with young children, older people may not have access to a car, people from deprived communities may not have access to a private car, and there is a great deal of evidence now that suggests if you don't have a green space within 5 to 10 minutes walk, you're unlikely to use it several times a week, ideally daily. So if we want to benefit from having those green spaces in our cities, they need to be nearby. And they need to be available to everyone, whether we're poor or rich, whatever ethnic community we come from. Having said that, we need variety as well. We're not all the same, we don't all want to do the same things. And at an urban scale, what we're looking for is an environment that offers us a range of opportunities. So yes, maybe a local green space where young children can play, where perhaps older people can sit when the day is sunny, a little place that everybody can use. But if we're teenagers and we're feeling energetic, we might want a place that has sports pitches or offers opportunity for using mountain bikes or something much more energetic. There's all kinds of different kinds of space that we might enjoy if we're a nature lover, where we want a wilder kind of space, perhaps, where we can see wildlife that may not be always available in every city park. So what we need is, just as we think about infrastructure for vehicles in our cities, we think about infrastructure for water supply and sewage, we need to think about a similar kind of green infrastructure that comes to every door, almost literally, or nearly that, but then also has specialist facilities that are needed and spread around the city in such a way that they are accessible to everyone, and that if you're poor or in a deprived community, you're not unfairly discriminated against because you don't have access to that. It's interesting, in the last 3 to 4 years, a number of different publications have come out from different organisations saying similar things. So Natural England, which deals with the natural environment, a government organisation that deals with the natural environment in England, has produced a range of publications promoting the value of green space near home. A health report by Sir Michael Marmot in 2010 talked about the value of nearby green space to reduce health inequities, the inequality between rich and poor people in terms of their health outcomes that is still the case in Britain, many parts of the world. In Scotland, we had a Good Places, Better Health review, which looked at what the environment offers for children's health, different health outcomes, and that promoted nearby green space as part of their recommendations. So a number of different reports have come out. Yes, the Mayor of London as well, actually 2011, produced a report that he commissioned from Tim Gill, a researcher in children's environments, looking at the value of green space for children's healthy development. So I think those all signal a new awareness, a re-awareness if you like, because we knew about it in the 19th century, of the importance of access to green space and the importance of getting recommendations into policy. Now those policies haven't all been fully put into practice, and that's the next challenge for us. It's one thing to have these reports and recommendations, it's another to actually make a difference, particularly where we often live in cities. Most of our cities are already built. Yes, there are new developments, but also a large part of where we live are cities and urban environments that have already been built. So how do you retrofit? How do you look again at those places and maybe next to that housing estate a bit of bare green ground that may have grass on it but offers no richness of environment? Can that be redeveloped in some way? Those are the kind of things that need to be considered now as part of putting that policy and those principles into practice. Well, some of our research showed that it is really important to have engagement with the environment from early childhood, the natural environment that is. We didn't pinpoint an age in that research, but we did show in particular that if you don't have frequent, regular access to a green or natural environment in childhood, then you're very unlikely to visit those kind of places as an adult. So that means that the resource for mental well-being, physical activity, whatever green space might offer, appears to be much less available to you if you haven't had a positive experience in childhood. Now, a lot of childhood development theories suggest that it's the very early years that are crucial in so many aspects of helping us in our development and determining our responses later in life, or at least influencing them strongly. So I would think that preschool and perhaps the first year or two of school, between 5 and 7, if you haven't had a natural experience by then, it's going to be much harder, I think, for you to engage with that natural environment later on. And there's a lot of evidence that shows that the natural environment offers opportunities that few other environments do. There's a flexibility about the natural environment. It's manipulable. You can, given on what particular environment it is, you can dig in it, you can brush against it, you can play with twigs and find out what happens when you break things. And it's a resilient environment that allows that permits it. And children develop not just gross motor skills, which are important, physical activity of an energetic sort, but also fine motor skills, discovering how to pick just that one flower, that one daisy, and not pick them all. Learning about making patterns in the sand with water can often involve quite careful and delicate judgments and motor coordination, and that seems to be important too. And finally, that understanding of the natural world, again, seems to stay with children if they have it from an early age. And there's evidence to suggest that that might influence a better attitude to responsible environmental awareness and behaviour in later life. So that's really important, as we know, for our society. We need to have areas for children to play that are responsive, that are natural environments or have natural elements that are flexible, that can be manipulated, that can be played with in different ways, and that allow children exploration, challenge, understanding how the world works, and I mean that literally, the physics and the mechanical laws of the world, how gravity operates, how water flows, what happens when you stop water and then it floods somewhere else, what happens if you pull a leaf off a plant and it doesn't grow back. All of these things are actually fundamental aspects of the environment that we all rely on for our lives. So that playful engagement, and it should be playful, the enjoyment that every child gets when it's given an opportunity for flexible play, imaginative play in an environment that is responsive and offers these different opportunities, I think can make a huge difference to children's lives. One of the challenges we face at the moment is a lot of schools, including, I'm sorry to say, schools in Scotland, have very impoverished playgrounds that don't offer this kind of environment. And a lot of public playgrounds have a few rather stereotypical bits of equipment that maybe offer opportunities for gross motor skills development, but not very much else, not for imaginative play, for example, not for the whole range of other things. And I think we need to understand that a flexible, looser, more natural environment is much richer in opportunities for children. The Scottish Government had a policy, Good Places, Better Health, that it developed in 2008. But in putting this policy into practice, it wanted to explore what this might mean for the environment in different contexts. So it chose 4 children's health outcomes: unintentional injury, asthma, obesity, and mental well-being. And it explored what different kinds of environments have been shown in research to make a difference to those health outcomes, what are important environments to support good health in those contexts, and then looked at housing, the neighbourhood environment, health and place more generally, to see what kind of places would make a good environment in Scotland for children to grow up into. And there was a focus on children aged 0 to 8, so from birth up to 8 years old. Now, there were a number of very expert researchers involved in different stages of this, and some other people, other researchers, looked at all the research evidence, very robust evidence of different environmental influences on these health outcomes. I was involved in an evaluation group that was an expert group coming from government organisations like the Forestry Commission in Scotland, but also other researchers like epidemiologists. And together we were trying to take the evidence from this very robust research and look at what that would mean in terms of recommendations for the environment of Scotland. And what was interesting and gratifying for me as a landscape architect was that almost all of the recommendations focused on a good quality outdoor environment near to where people live, a green space where children can play close to home, a street environment that is safe for children to walk in, an outdoor neighbourhood environment where children are welcome, places where children can explore walkable routes to school. Those kinds of things became important parts of the final recommendations. Now, these only came out a couple of years ago, and whilst the Scottish Government has signed up to these, we're still waiting to see exactly how they will be implemented in practice. One example of that I've been recently involved with is just on the 13th of June this year, 2014, the Scottish Government promoted its national walking strategy, and I was on the working group that helped develop the strategy. And one aspect of that, as you might have guessed from the previous work, was the importance of good walking places for children, that it should be possible for children to walk safely to school, and thinking about opportunities for school children to have good walking places, outdoor learning environments, not just in the school playground, but around the school and further afield where children can learn in natural environments, became part of that walking strategy. We've still got to see it put into practice. That's our challenge. Well, this is the one big challenge that often is raised when we start talking about opportunities for taking risks and exploratory play is, what about health and safety legislation? What about parental concerns? What about litigation if an accident happens in a playground? And certainly in the British context, there is a new mood. It doesn't always get complied with fully in every local authority, but there's a strong push now to look at cost benefit, at the cost of not having a good exploratory environment when you're a child, and the benefit of having a good environment that challenges children, as opposed to the potential cost of the unexpected happening in terms of accident or injury. And there's very good advice now. There's an organisation, PlayLink, in the UK that provides good advice on its website about how to assess risk and how to make good and sensible decisions that take into account the loss of benefit if children aren't exposed to risk. So not every environment in all circumstances, however risky, is considered to be okay for a public playground or a public site, but equally some risk may be perfectly acceptable risk in that the danger of life-threatening injury is pretty low, and actually the opportunity to be challenged and maybe end up at worst with a bruise or two. And we need to be much more sensible about how we view risk and view child's play, so that we don't potentially actually damage children's development by not allowing them to manage uncertainty, which is managing risk. Learning how to deal with uncertainty is actually a life skill that's really important. And if children don't have that opportunity when young, then they are lesser as adults. We've been through a bad patch in the UK where local authorities' funds were reduced for maintaining public space at the same time that people got concerned about litigation. And we ended up with some very sterile playgrounds that, as a parent, you also notice are sterile. Your child may beg to go there, but after 10 minutes they're bored. And there's nothing for a parent to do there either. So they're just a few pieces of play equipment on a rubberized surface that may stop severe life-threatening injury, or at least make it less likely to happen, but are not rich environments. And I think, again, the more forward-looking local authorities have started to recognise that actually a richer play environment is also one that is going to offer more opportunities for parents as well as children. And so I'm very keen that we start to develop that. And we've been looking in the UK at international examples. There are examples in Germany, for example, that are very good, where natural materials have been used in play areas, and a number of local authority officials have gone and visited these and seen how they work. Forestry Commission in the UK is also very supportive of a slightly more realistic approach to wild play in wooded environments, and supports its rangers in helping children to enjoy a woodland environment in ways that are sometimes a little bit disruptive but not really damaging, but allow them a freedom that is really healthy. So there is a change now happening, not universally across all local authorities. We need to keep pushing in the UK as well. Actually, one of the things that I've often thought is that an archetypal playful space is a beach, a sandy beach. Now, we can't all have sandy beaches in our playgrounds, but if you look at what different places afford, or behaviour settings, people walk onto a beach with sand and perhaps water lapping on the shore or a lake, and most people will kick off their shoes, dig their heels in the sand, start digging or making a castle. Whether young or old, there's a sort of playfulness about it. And that's not the only ideal environment, but I think it exemplifies some of the aspects that I would look for in a playground. I think opportunities to manipulate things, to move things around, to play with different materials, ideally with water as well, because that's a very strong attractor for children. Places where risk and challenge could be taken, and where the child or children themselves can choose how much risk to take. And natural materials are very good at that. A log or a tree trunk that you can crawl up gradually to different heights offers the child the opportunity to test their skills and to choose when they want to come down. It's not a standard height. They can choose at what point they feel too fearful or encourage themselves further. I also think it's really important that there are places where children can be very energetic and places where children can be quiet, have a more private place, have a place for imaginative games, or places to make what they might call dens, even if they're not particularly private, so that there can be personalised places to hide away, places for quiet play and thinking about stories and imagination, as well as places to be boisterous and loud and energetic. Now, it may be that the ideal play space in all cases can't be provided in every physical context, but it's that range of opportunities that I think we want to offer children. I think one mistake is to design on plan. We all do that as designers, and yes, we may need to produce a plan that's a view from above, but as designers we can often get seduced by the pretty patterns from above, and there are some very famous playgrounds that have been designed by artists and sculptors that are admired because of that, but actually it's the embodied experience on the ground for the child that matters, and a child that's often seeing things at a considerably lower height than an adult, let alone from an aerial view. So that's important. I think it's important to remember what it was like for you as a child. That seems very obvious, but it's interesting how often if you ask people for their most vivid childhood memories, it'll be some outdoor experience that's often a very rich environment. We do need to engage with children, but we need to do it in a sophisticated way so that we don't just say, what do you like best? And perhaps a child just remembers the thing that is most memorable rather than the thing that actually engaged them for the longest time. So we need to have a meaningful engagement with children that also understands that what a child wants to do when it's feeling tired or cross and may want to be on its own is different from what a child wants to do when it's happily with a group of friends that it gets on with very well, and what an 8-year-old wants to do with is different from a 2-year-old. So all of these things mean that I think an architect or a landscape architect needs to absolutely engage with their client audience, their client group, the children, but in a way that's not just a token that looks for the quick answer and doesn't look beyond that. And then behaviour observation is another fantastic way of understanding what children look for and what opportunities can be rich for children and what can be dull. And I've had a lot of researchers working with me and PhD students who've done some fantastic behaviour observation studies. And you look at a child in a range of different environments and what engages them, how they play, what can be a barrier or a facilitator for more imaginative or exploratory play, and you can learn so much by doing that. So I would encourage designers to do that very much, and then I think the design ideas will be very child sensitive, and they may not look as elegant as some of the conceptual ideas that sometimes as designers we come up with in our heads working on plan alone, but I think they'll offer a richer opportunity. A school garden is a place where children can learn through play and can also play without having to worry about learning. I think a school garden should be a place where the classroom environment becomes something very different from inside a building, where there are different opportunities to explore, for the child to develop its own skills, to learn social skills. It should be a place where children can have quiet conversations but also engage as a group. I think it should be a place where children learn how to grow things, because many children unfortunately don't have the opportunity in their own homes to grow things. So having just the delight and the pleasure of sowing seeds and watching them grow, but also harvesting food, is a very basic pleasure that again we should be offering every child. But also, in terms of learning, I think we're worried increasingly in our society about sedentary behaviour, about how we as adults, we don't take enough time to be active, and yet if we sit children in seats at a desk in their classroom and expect them to spend most of their learning day sitting down, we're giving them a very bad example of how they should be behaving later in life. And an outdoor environment offers much more flexibility. Of course, you can be flexible indoors, but outdoors often offers you opportunities for children to learn in different ways, actively as well as quietly sitting or lying or whatever. So I think a school playground is a place where embodied learning happens, and learning happens through play in a joyful and engaged way.